SFJ 4x4 Studios presents
in my oversized four-wheel drive Jeeps.
a Jeep podcast starring industry experts.
Pure monosity.
What? Say that again.
With mad scientist Scott Brown,
Use my drill press as a sort of lathe.
our host Neil Simpson,
If one light goes out, they all go out.
filled with shenanigans.
We are really professional with Jeeps.
This is I Speak Jeep.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast presented by SFJ4x4.com. My name is Neil with Simpson Family Jeeps.
Are you sure?
I am 100% positive, and I'm fired up right now. So I don't apologize, but I'm just kind of front-loading our listeners' experience because Jeffrey and I had a banging early session podcast on the American Hustle. If you're not familiar with that one right now,
You should be.
and you should be. So
Yes.
if you like personal development and leadership, entrepreneurship,
Or just a good message.
or a good message and a message about what makes SFJ 4x4 different, right?
Yes.
The core principles, right? And I've always said for years and years, it's not what we do that makes us special. It's how we do it, right? Anybody can tear apart a Jeep in their driveway or put one together or something.
Well,
it's how we do it.
sometimes.
And that episode
Well, that's
drops.
what I'm saying.
That episode drops on Friday, so make sure you look it up.
Yeah, it's a cool one, and it's on the podcast only. For those of you joining us live on Facebook, good morning. As I was mentioning, my name is Neil, and I am joined, as usual, with our decorated co-hosts here of the podcast. And you guys are whom?
Mad Scientist Scott Brown or Doc Brown, or I'm sure we'll come up with more
Great Scott.
names for me.
Janitor,
As we come along.
electrician,
500-mile
metalworker,
inspector today.
500-mile inspector.
Yes.
Repairer of Jeeps last week because there was 10 Jeeps that he did on Wednesday alone. I think.
Apparently,
Something.
it was
Apparently,
crazy.
he just came in and he waved his magic wand.
And just so people know, you can put 500 miles on a Jeep in a day and a half if you need to.
Yeah, it just
Apparently.
happened. Just happened.
Apparently.
And then I'm Jeff Shermani, the producer of the show.
Are you sure?
The Italian stallion.
There you go.
There it is. No doubt.
So comments real quick. Joe Brilla, as usual, has called this meeting and is not telling us why.
Yeah.
Chip Fury, SFJ, is back. Good morning.
I know
Good
he was
morning,
going
Chip.
through withdrawal.
Right?
I know. I felt bad. And then Darla is also good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, everyone. We so fully and authentically appreciate all of our listeners, whether it's all three of you in your ear holes via the podcast, or the folks who jump on the live and get in and participate. We really enjoy your support. Understand that if you are not on the Facebook Live, you can join us most Mondays at 10:19 a.m. on Facebook Live. And then additionally, our podcast for I Speak Jeep is up by Wednesday, right? Following the
Yep.
podcast, for Wednesdays following the podcast. And so if you are listening while you're commuting, driving your truck, working in, on the factory or the service floor or in your office, we appreciate you. We thank you. We welcome you to our Jeep family. And it matters so much, your support and continued telling people about this and leaving reviews and sharing the podcast into different groups so that other people can grow and appreciate it as well. And a special shout out to our Patreons,
Yep.
who both, socially and financially support us in additional manners that allow this podcast to happen. Without you, we would not be able to operate.
And if you enjoy this, you'll enjoy Discord.
Yeah.
If you're a patron, you get inside.
The top 2 tiers of Patreon get the Discord invite, and that chat room is hilarious.
It's on fire.
Yes.
It's on fire. You get to know a bunch about
I
us.
think my favorite part is if we don't comment in it within 24 hours,
Chip
if there's a
up.
24-hour break,
Chip goes with withdrawal.
Chip or Darla, somebody will pop up in there and go, where's everybody at?
they're like the marshals of the
Yes.
Discord.
It is
They
hilarious.
keep the
Yes.
conversation going, and I
Yes.
love that anybody. It's such a good group of just fellow Jeepers that anybody can jump in and out of those conversations.
Yeah.
Be it whether they're about, fun little modifications through your Jeep or decals or Crocs or off-road adventures.
Or just hilarious videos like Chuck put in there this
Yes.
past week.
Yes.
That was hilarious.
So we definitely thank you all who are a part of that and continue to support the podcast in that manner. And again, if that's not what you're able to do at this time, that's cool. Join us live here. Jump onto your favorite streaming platform. Grab this, this podcast, consume it. Grab the American Hustle, consume it, and
And give us a review.
give us a review. right?
Absolutely.
That's totally free and benefits us on Google, on all the streaming platforms, wherever.
Now, also real quick, a couple more comments came in. Doug says good morning.
Good morning, Doug.
And Rob says, morning, guys. I finally found my way here again.
Outstanding.
So-
Well, good thing Joe called us to meeting.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, just to point out as we're talking about this, if you do join us live, we are going to try to pay attention to all the comments, and we do try to read most of them. Sometimes there are side conversations that happen in the chat room, so it's worth coming in and just reading the comments and joining in there. But we will try to bring up
Come in
everything.
and see, will Chuck get banned again?
Oh, yeah. Chuck is really good at getting banned.
I'm telling you, it's the funniest thing because I've talked to a number of people, and they're like, I hear these names because they listen, they're frequent flyers, and so
Yes.
they listen, they download some podcasts and listen while they're flying and whatnot. And they go, and so they have opportunities every once in a while to jump on a Monday podcast, and they're like, it's hysterical to actually get into the comment
They
box.
do exist.
These are humans, right?
Yes.
And then you're doing like social media things where you're like clicking on their profile,
Yeah.
and you're like figuring out who they are as people. Funny social media.
Yes.
And then Diana even says, Happy Monday.
Happy
Happy
Monday.
Monday.
Well, and so ultimately today, folks, today's topic, if you will be smorgasbord.
Yes.
Yep.
Right?
Well,
It's
everything.
a hodgepodge of
A
everything.
little hodgepodge of anything. It's a Jeopardy category, right? And we'll be doing a hodgepodge. There was a number
a
of
lot of life happened in a week.
a lot of life happened. Actually, dose weeks,
Yes.
Yep.
right?
That's
So
true.
dose weeks happened since the last podcast, and so ultimately we are some topics for discussion so that you can front load and know that we're going to be talking about these things. There's a couple quality Jeep events happening regionally that we want to talk about. Toledo Jeep Festival and the Steel City Jeep Jam. We'll be discussing those events.
If you went to Toledo, be prepared to chime in with your experiences because we want to hear about it.
We do.
Yep.
Additionally, and obviously Steel City Jeep Jam, because I know Diana's on here. She'd like to maybe say a piece, but we can speak to that a little bit better because I know that one had, obviously both of them had great social media coverage. I know that for personal investments, I was very conscientious about what was happening at that event, so I might be able to speak some about it. I know they raised some good money. They had a nice turnout, all that kind of stuff. We'll also be talking about a little bit of, it's certainly not an exotic vacation that I took by any stretch of the imagination, but we'll be talking a little bit about the ups and downs of me
Driving your modified Jeep
It may not be an
Driving the
exotic.
modified
multiple
Jeep.
hours away.
It wasn't exotic, but we'll call it a wild vacation.
Yeah.
Always. I
It was a
just,
Simpson vacation.
one of these days, I'm going to have
You'll rent a car
a normal life.
and you'll go
No, you won't.
on a boring trip.
It's funny. I really encountered somebody recently. Like I encountered them in the real world, and they like brought up a couple of the stuff that they experienced like virtually through social media and podcasts and whatnot. And I meet them in the real world, and they're like you're legit kind of off your rocker, And I was like, yeah,
It's not an act, people.
that's not an act. Like I just thought this was normal.
I
thought it was normal.
Listen,
For 3+ decades.
I don't understand how somebody can enjoy life being normal.
Well, no doubt.
What's
That's
normal?
why we've gravitated
Right.
together. I get that, but so we had a Simpson vacation, where just powered through life.
Yeah. Adapt and overcome.
Everything, adapt and overcome
Drag
everything,
the lame ones along.
and the weak will come up to my level.
We'll get drug.
If you have just an iota of ambition in life, I will attempt to identify it and drag you kicking and screaming along. If you want to get on this process, I welcome. The train is big enough. Everybody can jump on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you're on my social media, you'll know that a phrase that I have shared many, many times is if you don't have enough, if you've built if you have your table and there's not enough seats at it for people who want to join you, then you build a bigger table.
Yeah.
Right. So anywho, we'll be talking about a little bit of some of our recent adventures.
I'm also going to, at some point through this, I want to share a shenanigan that happened from our social media that Davey put together for us. So we'll get to that
Our
as well.
social media was on fire. I really appreciate everybody who was participating and our team on.
At the end of last week, we also did a trip as well.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. And then so we will additionally be talking about the Mecum auto auction.
Yes.
So some of you folks who followed along with that know that we were at one of the most prestigious auto auctions. And so honestly, that was our first time there, right?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
our first experience for us. I gotta say it was with mixed results,
Yep.
but
Overall positive.
overall positive, and quite frankly, we could do that and we can do it better. Like not put on the auction,
Yes.
but I'm saying like you might look for us having a vehicle in the near future to roll across another vehicle in the near future rolls across the red carpet.
Yes.
We'll explain a little bit about what that process looked like.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, a little bit of a hodgepodge of talking points, a lot of events, and life that has happened, and maybe some shop updates in there as we go.
Yep.
And additionally, we'll have to talk about what's going to happen for next week if you guys are going to try to do a podcast by yourselves or.
Yeah, am I going to muddle through the the production side of things?
Yeah.
And of course, for the value of our listeners, I do believe I'm going to.
I think it's appropriate.
I do.
I think Jeff should come in just for that with his cone on.
Oh.
With this cone, this
For
cone
those that
of
don't know.
shame.
Yeah, for those that don't know, I'm actually getting neck surgery Wednesday, so
he
I will
gets
be.
a cone like a puppy
It's a
dog.
cone of shame.
It's a
like a
soft
puppy
collar.
dog.
A
It's
soft
a cone.
collar.
I'm calling it a
It's
cone.
cone.
I'm calling it a cone too.
I just want to see him in the
I
cone.
literally told Kristen that I don't care if I'm allowed to go back to work in a week. If they say I still have to wear the soft collar, I'm not allowed to go back.
picking on you now. I'm getting a head start.
No, Savage, if you're listening to the podcast, we need you to Photoshop Jeffrey with a cone of shame. And that will absolutely be
That
on
has to
social.
happen.
That will happen. It'll be on social at some point.
I might as well just come in and try to do
that's
the
what I was
podcast.
saying.
Hey, you might as well just come in with the cone.
Yeah.
We'll let you. You'll just come in, do the production. We'll make fun of you on air.
Yeah, it's great.
And then you can go. You can go home.
I think I might be, on drugs, so I'll probably have to
Oh,
Oh,
be driven
it'd be
here.
better.
That would be even better.
Yeah.
That's
But
great. All right. So, Scott, how's the metal shop wonder of the world? I saw some updates. You've been working on some machines, some tooling.
So I really, after completing my tool I made last night, I really sat back and was like, this is why my dad and I didn't build cars, personal cars, very fast,
Okay.
because we don't accept status quo.
Status quo. Status quo is for lames.
So for those who don't know, I'm working on a 36 Ford two-door sedan.
Who
with trunk.
doesn't know at this point?
I
It's
don't
been
know.
3 years.
It's so long.
Your handle is literally 1936 Ford crazy.
So
You've got shirts that say it.
factory floors had these ribs in them that were called a bead roll. They were in a certain location. I thought they were pretty close to factory. Segue later. Also, the floor is relatively weak.
The floor is lava.
So they made some reinforcements out of some sort of hardwood.
I got your reference. I don't
Yeah.
think Scott did.
I did.
No.
He did. He
Yeah, but
just
that would burn
ignored
the
it.
supports. But anyway,
Okay.
so I'm not a woodworker. I can barely set wood on fire. So I had our performance mechanic. He has about the most
really is
awesome wood shop that I have a metal shop at home. So he made me out of cherry.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm jealous of his wood shop
Oh,
because
so
I have
nice.
all the tools, but I am not set up the way he
No.
is.
And it's all keyed and figured out.
Oh,
and it
it's-
like unfolds like a
Greg does
transformer.
what Greg does, man.
And goes
It's
back together
it's
so he can pull
amazing.
his vehicle in the garage.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I can't have a shop because I park my car in the garage.
No.
No.
No, that's the biggest excuse. That,
Yes. I choose to let my vehicle get rained on because I'm lazy.
I'm with you. I have all the shop tools. I can't park. I have a 2-car garage. I can't
Yes.
park a car in it.
And you're not set up as a shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a regular garage. Anyway, so factory-wise, how these were installed is they had a countersunk straight blade screw, which anybody that's tried to take an 89-year-old straight blade screw out sucks so bad. Especially when it goes into wood, which then has a metal nut like tied into that. So anyway, those got drilled out and the floors got replaced. But the floors I bought, which are the only thing available.
I know that you can't burn wood, but I'm going to teach you a little secret about those screws.
Uh-huh.
Put a torch on the head of the screw,
I did that.
and it'll heat up into the wood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I
But
did that.
did you burn
one came out.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Then moving on.
Moving on.
So Craig made them perfect. These floor reinforcements. They are 100% accurate reinforcements. So when I finally got to the point where the floor is painted and the floors are installed, and like I said, I did not make these floors myself. I welded them in. Boy, am I sad I did not make them because they would have been correct. But anyway,
So the floor supports are correct.
the floor support's correct.
The work that you've done to this point.
And I have one
is
locating
correct.
hole left right by where your feet go if you're sitting in the back seat. So I've been using that to locate where the wood goes. Got that all done. Finally, drilled one hole on the bottom, made my tools, dimpled the sheet metal so the head of the screw will go down. I'm using Phillips stainless so that I don't, Aiden in 80 years won't have problems taking these off to restore the car again.
Of course.
And of course, the ribs are not in the right spot.
Oh,
The car just keeps ball kicking so hard.
no.
So now I have to modify Greg's perfect boards because I'm not allowed to cut the floors back out of the car. That would really fix it the way I want to. But everybody, including my wife, says just shut up and build the car already and drive it and be happy.
Yes.
Put carpet over it. You'll never see it.
Yes.
So I have to trim those so that they don't hit the ribs, are not in the right spot. I see you. It's supposed to be made quality floorboards for a 36 Ford.
I see you and I reject your
Yes.
existence.
I knew some things weren't right, and I actually communicated with this company, and they're like, "Leave us alone. Why are you complaining?"
That just irritates
They're
me.
like, at least we make it for you.
At least we
That-
make it for
that
you.
was their
You should be
attitude.
happy that we even produce a product.
And-
God, that irritates me.
And I had a mutual friend come over and see the shop, and he looked at the 36. He's like, "Oh, what panels did you make?" And it made me sad for a minute. And I was like, "Well, let me take you over to the M38 over here, and let me show you what I can make."
yes.
And notice how everything fits.
Yes.
And holes are in the right spots, and ribs are in the right spot.
Yep.
And people say, "Well, why does that matter?" Because then your boards don't fit on your floor later. You might save 5 seconds making it whatever, but then you spend 3 hours later modifying everything.
Pay
to fit.
now or pay later, but you always pay.
So much. So that's where I'm currently at. I have a beautiful, those that don't know, I chose blue for the bottom of the car. I know I had asked people to guess. It is not the blue the car will be. That was incentivized by a friend of mine that painted the bottom of his Model A red.
Oh, that's fun.
And he inquired I use a brush, so that's what I did. And so that is good. Once I make the boards conform to the incorrect floor, those will be going on. And then I have to do from the back seat up, sealed seam, and then prime and paint. And then finally, we might have a whole car once again, maybe in September.
Wow. That
That's
is
at my current pace.
ambitious.
All
I
right.
dig it.
I'm going to hold you to it.
Yeah,
I got the
just
camper done.
Just like we hogged on Jeffrey.
that's fine.
Oh, that's it. Listen, folks, if you were listening along with
That's
us.
just putting a body on a frame. I can do that, I think, in a month. I think. Okay.
Oh, buddy.
Oh.
That's how many tools I got to make.
This has
Oh,
happened,
boy.
folks. This has happened. You are all witness. If there is a notary in our viewing and listening audience,
Yeah, that's fine. I commit to it. We'll make it a
Signed,
whole
sealed, and
car.
delivered.
is this a driver in September, or is
I
this...
got a Baby Bell carburetors. I'm so close to making the frame drive by itself. I kind of want to do that. Because you
Okay.
really realize I could put carburetors and the fuel in the tank. I have a clutch. I have brakes that are bled. I have a steering box with a steering wheel on it.
I kind of
I
want to
am
see you
vice
drive this
gripped
without the
with
body.
wood and a temporary seat away from driving
Absolutely.
this thing.
I kind of
want
want to see that.
So close.
I don't know, folks. You got to weigh in. You got to tell us what you think.
Yeah.
What-
Do I concentrate on making the frame drive or making it look like a car?
Oh, we want to know what folks want to. What do we want to see? I kind of want to see you drive a chassis.
Yeah.
First of all, because I love driving just
Oh yeah.
cattywampus, chassis.
I think it'll be great.
inspired type things.
Yeah.
There's actually a video that's circulating that you're driving on a crate just recently.
Yeah, that's not
Just
I
recently.
was gonna say.
That's,
So
So
I did
so
that
I've got
in
to
like when I was 12.
I've got to move my we have that RV and we got to move this diesel pusher and I had taken the seats out of there and my kid asked me the other day, goes, so I was working on getting it
Yeah.
fired up and he's like, well, how are you gonna take it out of there? And I was like, I don't need seats to drive.
Yeah,
Like,
you made him so conservative because he's got to balance your craziness.
yeah, right. That's the problem. That's what we were talking about him over the week. I was like, where did he come from? Like,
Yeah.
that poor old soul.
Yeah.
And I do feel bad talking a little bit about our adventure. Leo, if you're listening or watching, it was not entirely intended to. We had said we weren't going to be talking a lot about our adventures because we want to be humble in the process. Not everybody gets to do these types of things. Now, it is
Oh,
unique.
come on, everybody can drive a Jeep and break down in North Carolina like you do.
Amen. Why not?
Real quick, before we get into that, I want to go through some of these comments because the comment section's on fire. Going back all the way to Joe saying Toledo was fun, saw many silly Jeeps that'll never see so much as a dirt driveway.
Yep.
No comment.
And then normal is overrated. Diana said normal isn't a thing, unique and individual is.
Mm-hmm.
To which
Oh, there's a lot of comments.
there's a lot of comments.
All right. Have fun.
Joe said, and I quote, individuality is fine as long as we can all do it together.
Then he followed right up with another one.
Then he followed right up with the cone. At least you can get free HBO with that cone. I actually get free HBO through my cell phone service, so yeah, I guess I could.
I still think the cone is the
Oh,
way
that's
to
great.
go.
Yeah. So then Tony jumping into the talking of the garage sizes. 28 by 24 garage, barely have room to squeeze the CJ7 in.
No.
little pucky.
I'm here for you there. Rob said, I feel for you. I can barely fit that 10th Jeep in mine.
Yes.
Chip, it just got real to your deadline. And then Rob, I have faith in the mad scientist. Chip is saying driver. Make it a driver
We want that
first.
chassis to drive.
Dale says lawn chair and ratchet strap. Drive it.
Who needs a back?
Full send. We don't need a back.
Yeah, it's just a
That's Dale's.
piece of-
Dale's going for luxury at that
yeah,
point,
I just put a log on there and vice grip it down. We're fine.
right? Dale's
Foot
going for
screws.
luxury. I'll take a milk crate, man. I've driven so many things off of milk crates before.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge is on for you. And
I think you guys should vote. See what we should do.
we're gonna put it up on a social.
Yeah.
We'll put it up on our social in some capacity.
What should the doc do?
Oh my gracious! And Jeffrey, I mean, to draw it back a little bit, how's your son doing? Right, it's been a while.
So he's doing really good. Actually, we just for the first time last week he went without the eye patch for several hours of the day and was able to open his eye relatively comfortably.
Interesting.
awesome.
So obviously he's still got some discomfort because the sutures are still in. Once those get removed, that'll make a big difference. And I don't know why for those watching all of our comments just revamped over the screen for some
I
reason.
blame
Whatever.
Jeff.
It's Jeff.
So anyways, he's doing really good. August 25th, he gets the stitches surgically removed from the eye. So that'll be the next update from there.
Interesting.
So he's doing good. This weekend, some of the things that I did was I actually stopped by Scott's house and finally attempted to remove some of his tree.
Finally.
The tree that I cut down last year, the big log that was next to it. I went there thinking, I'll just finish chopping it up. I forgot how big it was. I think it grew since the last
It
time I
grew
was
on
there.
the ground. It grew on the ground.
So I was able to chop up about half of it before my
It
neck
was very
said I'm
fitting
done.
because I was picking on him before. I was like, so I have other engagements. So you're gonna have to do this by yourself. And he's like, well, this has only been like the third time. I was like, well, it'll be 4 times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then he proved me right.
Yep. So anyways, there's that. And then,
What did you chop it up with?
with a 20-inch chainsaw.
What chainsaw?
It's Craftsman.
Craftsman.
You're picking on it, but you borrowed it, and you
Craftsman. Craftsman
you're picking on it, but you borrowed it, and you know how well that
chainsaw.
one works.
Craftsman chainsaw. It works great. It works great.
He's just trying to make me buy a
my
Milwaukee.
steel doesn't start as easily as that Craftsman does. I don't know. And then I gave Greg a cruddy China saw,
Yes.
and it starts better than my steel.
One pole.
I bought a
He was
golf.
bragging about it over the weekend.
I bought
he
a
was.
full size steel, and I've got to pull for. It was a
Well,
brand new
it's
one.
scared. It knows how your track record with with mechanical things. You don't make it out alive if you're mechanical and you're with Neil.
I was gonna say I will use it to the fullest.
And then, besides that, Kristen and I did a lot of work on her laser.
Nice.
Got some more stuff made, so that was a lot of fun.
I was thinking about the board game over the past week that we really need to finish and put a production piece out.
And he even did something special for me. He made me a 36 Ford Crazy keychain.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And he couldn't find. I'm very unreliable with electronic stuff, so he found a picture on Instagram
Of his shirt.
of my shirt
That he was wearing.
that I was wearing and cropped it out of that.
I didn't. I literally found the
Well-
picture, sent it to Kristen, said, "Here, make this into an image that I can use to make a keychain."
Magic
Nice.
happened, and you can see the grill bars on the keychain.
Outstanding.
And I need one of those as a piece for the game.
Yeah.
That has to happen.
Oh,
It's
isn't
a good
that
idea.
fun?
But
That's
so
fun.
we made it. It was out of acrylic, and it
Okay.
I literally engraved the acrylic and cut it out to the shape of the
Yes.
logo and everything.
The only thing that sucks is it's so special. I don't want to use it now. I just want to put it in a special keepsake drawer
special. I don't want to.
because I don't want to break it.
Oh.
Use it, and if it breaks, I'll make you another one. I
Yeah.
don't care.
Yep. Yep. There's the Simpson
I need
way.
a spare.
I will use it to.
I did the spare beforehand because
I'm
it
not-
gave me confidence.
I'm not collecting anything. I want it all to have a purpose, and I'm going to drive it.
Yeah.
Now Chip is saying we have to live stream the test drive on
Is there
Patreon.
any other option?
I don't know if we can do live stream on Patreon, but we'll figure something out. At least video.
There's a way.
I'm sure there's a way.
I mean, we could get a really crappy video like I could film.
well, I can
Not
always
really
no.
much.
I can always set up a live stream with a private link for the Patreon. So if we can't live stream to Patreon, we can have the link there. The Kristen is literally saying, Scott, I can replace it. Use it.
Yep.
Not a big deal. The board game could be a great Christmas present. Looks like we need to have Jeff set a new deadline.
Ooh.
Oh, there we go.
So I am working on modifying the design of it a little bit so it's a little cleaner, a little more
Yeah.
professional. And then Kristen's going to work on getting the pieces a little less blurred and a little cleaner images because she can do that.
I have
I
all
can't.
the faith now with, with what you did with
Well,
my
and as
Yeah.
we talk
keychain.
about merchandise, right, and just to kind of that's the how my brain moves in, because of course at Toledo Jeep Festival this past weekend there was a fair amount of people representing SFJ 4x4, which was
Yes.
fantastic
and
because
we appreciate
could not.
so much.
Yeah, we appreciate so much. I love what I call in the wild.
Yes.
So people who are like, hey, I'm at this location and I'm walking through a random parking lot and here's an SFJ sticker, here's a mug.
Just
there's
clicked in my head. I'm sure you remember this. There was this circular of cars for sale, and we had to always grab one. It was for free.
Yeah.
And in that circular was always send us your pictures of the most odd locations where you're reading our book.
Yes.
And they're like on a volcano.
Absolutely.
They're in the middle of Tokyo.
Yes.
And it's a book from Ohio.
Yep. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
We need that with SFJ.
Well,
I also just need to go back to comments for just a second because in reply to Chip, my wife says he loves deadlines. I don't love deadlines. They're just a challenge at that point, and I have to rise to the challenge.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't like deadlines. I hate them,
yeah.
but I will meet them.
Jeffrey, I can appreciate that so much, man. I can. Oh, man. And so I know that people are out there at Toledo repping, right? So, merchandise is there and it's moving, and we were not. This was an unfortunate and unusual moment where we were unable to be at that event. But as we move, whether we want to talk about it or not, the fall, back to school, and eventually the holidays will come around, and the board game being prepped and ready, and having some other merchandise so that people who feel acquainted with us and want to continue to support the business, you can
Yes.
have that merchandise at home. My son goes to me, he goes, why don't we for all the socks that I personally do?
Why don't we have SFJ socks?
Why don't we have SFJ socks?
Said that
that's
for
a-
years.
Not only should it be SFJ socks, but they have to be really fun and unique.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I said, well, Daddy's working on that. But then, like, I thought, am I working hard enough? We actually produce
believe in
fanny
you, Leo.
packs. Right?
Challenge him.
Leo's in charge. Leo's going to manage sock, and he also produced pants.
There we
He
go.
said, socks and pants. Why don't we have socks and pants? I said, I don't know. I have to work with Dave. He's like, I got this. All right, dude, let's do it. You know what I
I'd
mean?
love to see what he designs for socks.
Yes.
Right?
Daddy Jeep, just back to the deadlines, is saying he works better under stress. Deadlines are good.
Yes.
Justin said, I don't like them either.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And then now the comments are coming in about the socks. Justin saying, good idea. Roy is saying, good morning. I'd buy SFJ socks.
I mean, who
Heck
wouldn't
yeah.
buy
Oh,
SFJ socks?
speaking of comments, so the episode we did with your wife where we had her on,
Yes.
your best friend from high school was in the
No.
comments constantly.
Yes.
He actually stopped by the shop last
Yes.
week while you were out of town.
And then I blew Jeff's mind.
It gets worse because not only did he stop in the shop to see you,
Yes.
he goes, well, that's okay. He's not here. At least Scott will be here, right? No, Scott was off. It was Thursday.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So then Friday, I come in and he tells me that. I was like, well, I knew Maurice before Neil knew Maurice.
Yes.
And I didn't know that.
And he didn't know that. Blew his mind.
That's
away.
how souls, if people know me all too well, I just believe there are these souls that are all like mashed together and we're
Yes.
always interacting and we're all in, there's certain souls. They talk about soulmates and I do believe, in the significance of my spouse, but there's all these other people that
Yes.
we're mashed up. So yes, Scott and I literally share a friend that
Yes.
Scott met when he was in elementary school.
Yes.
Worlds completely divided into way different towns
Way
and
different.
all different interests.
Yes.
And I eventually become best friends with this guy, and he is not automotively inclined one bit.
Not
He
a
probably,
lick.
I know he came into the shop looking $1 million.
Oh, absolutely.
He is,
Absolutely.
He is a pastor, a prophet, a religious person. He's a gifted writer and speaker. And
Just from the few minutes that I
musician.
interacted with
Musician.
him, I can tell you he was very down to earth, very
Yes.
friendly,
Yeah.
and hilarious.
yeah, and he's dogging on me because he's sending me pictures standing in the showroom. I was like,
he literally looked at me, goes, "Can I take pictures?" And I said, "Take as many as you want." Rub it in his face that he wasn't here.
Yeah, and he was on that podcast, hammering on me while Jen was here. That was great. Great stuff.
I told him that when he said who he was, I'm like, "Oh, you were in the comments, and Neil was trying to get me to block you." That's right.
I don't need those dirty secrets coming up out of the past there.
So back to comments again, because holy cow, comments are on fire today. Daddy Jeep is saying the YJ is getting tons and 112-inch wheelbase by the Great American Crawl in September.
Oh, yeah, there's
That's a big.
Mark, you're the deadline,
Yes.
folks. This is like New Year's resolutions, but
Yes.
for real.
Right? Chip Fury saying, speaking of socks, we will be dropping off something for Neil this Saturday.
Hey,
Ooh.
I think I'll be in town.
Justin, I have JMB Garage underwear.
Justin,
He needs SFJ underwear.
Justin, we might do. You know what? Wait a second. So back in the day, we used to do T-shirt swaps, right? At events, we would
we
do
do
a
a-
T-shirt swap. Justin,
I think you-
Justin, we might have to do an underwear swap.
You need to do whitey tighties.
I was
SFJ whitey
saying,
tighties.
baby, tidy whities, that has to happen.
We're doing whitey tighty swaps. I haven't worn a pair of
Inappropriately
whitey
small.
tighties.
Right?
US medium for Neil.
Oh, man.
Oh,
Well,
we
that
go.
ties into Joe Brilla's comment, SFJ 4x4 bikinis.
Yes.
And Rob saying mankinis. And then Darla bikinis with Crocs.
No, okay.
Oh,
There's
okay,
the Crocs.
So let's actually talk about Jeep things and events.
Gone too far.
Gone too far. Here we go. So we're gonna, as far as the events are concerned, right? And those of you who went to Toledo Jeep Festival, it was obviously a substantial event. If you are unfamiliar, Toledo Jeep Festival was launched in 2017, to my knowledge, and it was this initiative to revitalize the concept that this is the production, the birth space, not the place, but the space, the production of the vehicle itself, right? And so Toledo is very much a downtown or urban space.
Yes.
And so this was an attempt to utilize that downtown space. They worked with city officials to shut down a number
lot
of city blocks.
A lot of blocks.
Yep.
And it is beautiful downtown space. And I think it's one of those unique shows that unlike, say, Bantam that's out in a big field, or Jeep Beach that's at Daytona, or any of these other
I mean, you're beside
events.
skyscrapers with Jeeps on crates, and
Yes.
it's amazing.
And Toledo is unique in the sense that they are a big enough city that you're literally by, a relative skyscraper,
Yes.
right? We're not New York City downtown,
No.
but we're at a skyscraper.
Yep.
And yet they've pulled enough strings to
Yes.
shut down the city
Yes.
for a Jeep show.
I think my favorite part was prior to the show starting, there was a news article that dropped, and it said, within a few hours, there will be 300 Jeeps in downtown Toledo. And I laughed and went, haha, 300? That's
Yeah.
it? Yeah, right.
That's it? No.
Yeah.
No.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Just
Yes.
wait.
Thousands of Jeeps, right? And they do a massive Jeep parade, which is
Yes.
a huge attraction. And we have, and a huge shout out to Jerry Huber, right? Who's one of the organizers who is always so gracious and such a fantastic supporter of SFJ.
Yep.
And has allowed us to show our unique builds and vehicles over the years.
Yep.
So much so that last year, an LJ build of SFJ's was the cover photo for PBS.
Yeah.
And circulated as far as the unique offerings that America has as far as entertainment, right? This yellow LJ that we built, here it is on PBS's cover screen and an article. So super cool stuff.
I feel like I gotta do like a 2-second history thing just because what I do. For those that are going, why Toledo? It goes all the way back to Willie's Overland.
Yes.
There was literally a factory that is now gone, and there was a smokestack that said Overland on it. For those that don't know, that is the original company where the Jeep came from. The ones that are in the war and everything, those are Willie's or Willis, depending on what you
Like to pronounce it as.
battles.
It's 2023. I
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah, whatever
care.
battle side you were on.
Whatever enunciation you want to
I
use.
think if you're referring to the old ones, it's Willis. If it's today's standard, it's Willie's.
I'm not talking to you.
Yep.
All
It's
right.
fine.
So
Anyway,
I'm trying to ride the center of the line here and be on both
we
sides of the
reject
part.
your sensibility.
So much for-
Anyway,
so much
reject your
being neutral.
sensibility. Yes.
so we're talking about over 100 years of manufacturing in this town,
Yes.
and the fact that there is still a Jeep plant.
So just here it is. Bantam is the conceptualization
Yes.
of the quarter-ton light-duty people mover.
And they also built cars. If you're on our
Bantam
Patreon,
Car
you know
Company, right? That's
I
that
showed
is
pictures. I
Butler,
proved it.
Butler, Pennsylvania. This is why in the background behind Scott, if you are a viewer, if you are a listener, there is a backdrop.
Let's
It is
see.
the back of
So-
a number of shirts. It's the
there's-
number of
there's
shirts
Butler.
that we use. It is
There's us.
really, really
And then-
valuable. This
over
graphic. I
Joe,
created-
I'm not reading your comment.
I created this graphic years ago because I call this the heartland, right? This is the heartland of the vehicle itself, right? Yeah, the Rubicon and Moab, it gets all this hype for being the Mecca, right? Where
And you
these were put through their
And
paces.
you also notice that there's correct grills on our thing.
yes,
The Bantam grill is at Bantam, and the Willis grill is at the Toledo.
is in Toledo,
because
and it's
I'm involved, people.
and
Which way were you just pointing? I think you were pointing.
That's fine.
it doesn't matter because the listeners can't see him,
Yeah, it's
thankfully,
fine,
right?
thankfully.
Our
we have a
live
voice for
audience
radio.
can.
Yes, your audience.
They
that's
expect
right.
it.
So,
I gave
and
them
then the
stock
last,
brown
the
stuff.
third and final piece is Ford had their hand because of its proximity to manufacturing in Toledo
Yes.
as well, right? So these
You
are our
blink
three.
and you're in Michigan.
We have these three power players with
Yes.
that vehicles. You go and you get into your posh 2024 JL, which is beautiful. Don't get me
Yes.
wrong. I fell in love with them.
your heated steering wheel.
With your heated steering wheel and your Dose power seats, both left and right.
Yes.
Your 24-inch front grille, it fits a winch perfectly,
Yes.
and your giant 12-inch center screen.
Yes.
And understand the forefathers that made that available to you.
Yep.
Right here in Western Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Southern Michigan, and we thank them for that.
Yes.
So, anyways, Toledo, the significance. I remember how moving that was for me. For they were like, we're going to do a show. And I was like, yes, finally. It was not well put together the first year.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember calling. They announced it on the radio and maybe a newspaper article.
Yep.
And I called in and I spoke to an individual.
They weren't ready.
We had been doing shows for about 5-6 years professionally at that point. And I call in and I speak to this woman and she goes, I'm so over my head right now.
Yes.
She said, all I did was I was sitting around a meeting. I did not ever expect the outcry from
Yes.
people all across the
They
country.
didn't know how excited Jeep people could be.
Yeah, she didn't know. She was like, I have a Jeep. I've worked in the Jeep.
Remember those call centers
manufacturing
they used to
plant?
the show on, like, where they do videos with
Yes.
music and stuff, and all the phones are ringing off the wall. I've been back there with like 80 people answering. There was one poor woman in
Yes.
some little downtown
Yeah,
office
in her
Toledo,
office.
and the phone just started running off the
She
hook.
said it hasn't stopped ringing, and she goes, I don't have any details. I just said I would be here to answer the phone, and I could just kind of say, yes, we are doing this.
Yes.
And she was so blown away, and I was like, well, get ready because
Yes. About a million Jeeps are going to show up.
correct. Jeep people love to get
And
together.
people used to go before this. It was like your rite of passage. You
Yes.
would get your Jeep, you would drive there, and you would try to block traffic and take a picture
And my grandfather did.
in front of the manufacturing plant.
Yep. He absolutely was there and took a picture in the 90s, and they just formalized the activity
Yes.
appropriately. And so they have a couple big clubs that play a big role out there. They
Yep.
shut down downtown. They have their convention center. We unfortunately, because of a snafu,
Yep.
so hashtag not a restoration on its world tour was supposed to be at Toledo Jeep Festival.
Yep.
As credit to Ryan.
I'm going to say it was there.
Yes.
So as credit to Ryan, he drove it there. No, he drove it. He
Trailered
trailered it. He got it there, communicating appropriately with the event organizers, and a
small detail.
small detail and a active guard or
Doing appropriate things.
an individual who was just doing their job
Yep.
did not let the Jeep in.
Yep.
That is the reality of the situation.
But we thank Ryan so much for going above and beyond as always,
Yes,
and
and
getting home at almost midnight.
and with his Jeep, he had to take
Yeah.
his Jeep
Back home.
back home. So a little bit of a big faux pas, and thank you for Jerry for offering us.
Yeah.
As Jerry said,
lots of balls were in the air.
Yeah.
And we drop one once in a while.
yep, and so that's very challenging, and that's a humbling experience to say, hey, that stinks. You
Yes.
know,
It's not how many
Um,
times you use something perfectly. It's
it's-
how you respond.
it's
when
how
it
we
doesn't-
respond.
when it hits the ground.
Yep, 100%. So
Were you in our podcast this morning? Because, I mean,
overhear
he
it.
is always in the pot.
Yeah.
He gets fired up for the day. So the Toledo Jeep Festival, if you haven't made it part of your travels yet, I highly recommend it. It's this cool downtown experience. There are off-site activities.
Yep.
There are social events that happen leading up to it. There's usually a baseball game that you can attend.
Yep.
The local eateries are unique and
Nice hotels.
delicious. Nice hotels.
Yep.
I mean, it is downright a good visitor experience.
And not only that, it is at this point called out the oddball Jeeps, the ones that I really gravitate to. I mean, I've seen little Jeep type tugs that were just on certain ships that would move stuff around that were there.
Yes.
And the first year, I'll never forget, we walk in and it was just primarily full sizes, and they had an extended cab J truck. And I'm like, that's really cool. Where did that come from? And the front bumper was off, and on the front of the frame, it said special. And I was like, yes, it's special, but what does this mean? Well, they appropriately had all kinds of information. It is a prototype.
Can you hold for 1 second, right?
Yep.
So for our listeners who may not be aware, the J truck was Jeep's first run at a full-size pick-em-up truck.
Yes.
Starting in the 60s, roughly,
63.
through 81, 80, 79.
something like that.
Somewhere in there, right? So
Yeah.
we have a full-size pickup truck, right? We
I think
understand
they made them later than that, but anyway.
we understand these concepts of full-size trucks, and America loves their trucks, right?
Yes.
And so Jeep was trying to be in the market. We love our Gladiators now,
Yes.
and
our
while-
Comanches before.
and our Comanches, but our Comanches were a small truck, right?
Yes.
So the J Truck series was a full-size pickup truck meant to compete largely with the half-ton and three-quarter-ton square bodies.
Yep.
The highboy, Fords,
Yep.
any of the era of, the Dodges, the Fords, the Chevys, that era
Yep.
of full-size pickup truck.
And-
So
and Ford came out first with extended cabs and crew cabs, factory, and that kind of stuff. And everybody else kind of was like, okay, we see you, Ford. We have to now match you. And sometimes Jeep's a little behind
yeah,
with those things. Somebody's screaming at the mothership and they're not listening kind of thing.
Mothership's like, la, 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 you
Yeah.
can't tell me.
So they creatively came up with a way to produce an extended cab out of parts they already had in true AMC/Jeep fashion.
Yep, don't reinvent the wheel.
And it still didn't get built. Just blows my mind. But this truck, obviously, always with prototypes, was slated for destruction.
Mhm.
Something happened. It didn't. And at this point, it's gone through a full restoration. And they have shown the Jeep in process. And now it is complete, giving appropriate kudos to the man that saved the Jeep and was part of its conception. It's so cool. If you haven't gone on and seen that, you have to search it. They have literally a whole Facebook page specific for them.
And now, just go back to the comments for just a second here. When we were talking about deadlines, Tony said, time to start the SFJ 4x4 Deadline Accountability Support Group.
Ah! My God.
Have you been touched by a deadline? Did you miss a deadline?
You have to do that now. Sorry.
SFJ
Okay.
4x4
And Davey,
is
we
here
need shirts
help
to
you.
say SFJ Accountability Support Group.
We are here to make you better.
We
and
support you missing the deadline.
I just no,
No, we help people
no,
make deadlines
no, we
all
help
the
you
time.
Make deadlines,
Sometimes you miss them. It happens.
and life will go
But
on.
sometimes you put 500 miles
Yeah,
on
but
a
if we-
Jeep in a day
but
and
if
a half.
we use Neil's calendar, you never miss a deadline.
No doubt. It's flexible.
Real quick, too, Joe said his favorite Jeep at Toledo was a British SAS long-range desert group vehicle with a pair of M1919 30 cal machine guns.
That's something. That's a machine there.
That's pretty cool.
What is also really interesting about Toledo is the stories, the people that are there, because those are the people who are in on the decision making. They're in on the actual production, and they know some of the intricacies firsthand.
Yes.
They also know some of the peculiar vehicles that
It's so cool when you're there and the engineer or a concept guy comes up and you start to talk to them, and they're just regular people.
Yep, they're just regular people.
Yep.
And it's interesting because there are, if you are a if you have a machine shop near your house, right now,
Yep.
and you were working on your lawnmower, generically, you could go over to your buddy, and yes, all day long, your buddy, that machine shop, just down the road from you, they produce mass quantity of these washers or
something.
right?
Yeah.
And that's what they do to make money. But you go down there and you say, hey, Jim Bob, I need you to make me this little spacer piece for my lawnmower.
Make this thing that dimple my floor for my screws to not bubble up
Exactly.
the carpet.
Right? I'm going to need you to, can you, you guys are just sharing a cup of coffee. He said, oh, I can crank that out for you in a couple hours.
Yeah.
I'll make you this special piece. It's going to change your life in your lawnmower.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that it's a viable, sellable product.
Yes.
He's not going to get rich. He's not going to stop doing everything he does, but he makes you that piece for your lawnmower anyways, right? Jeep is no different. And so around that area, there are manufacturing factories that have these
Everywhere.
weird conglomerates of Jeep-based vehicles,
Yep.
fire trucks, tug vehicle, tugboat, lot moving fleet vehicles, using them in that area for manufacturing and production.
Yep.
And it's cool to say, oh yeah, hey, I know where like 7 of these things are just sitting in the back corner because, we can't get parts for them anymore. And they were used in the 70s and 80s and then we parked them. We don't want to scrap them because they're kind of cool, but they're also not worth anything. And I'm like, I want those. I want to be there, you know?
Well, and also back to the J truck for a minute. Tony was commenting the stories on their Facebook page are pretty good. Something about hiding the J truck behind the cabinets.
Yeah, there's some really interesting things
As
because
they should.
well, it is, and as the idea that production vehicles, or excuse me, prototype vehicles that are non-production are supposed to be terminated.
Yeah.
You are supposed to crush them. And there
It makes
is
me sad.
in
Mothership.
the automotive industry, there is great folklore,
Yes.
both about vehicles that have made it out.
Yes.
And it's almost this kind of like legendary, like
They lived.
they lived, right? I know this. I in my mind, there was a prototype vehicle back in 12 that I fell in love with. And by 14, I hadn't seen hide or hair of it. It was the rage. It had consumed the internet. All these shows were consumed by this prototype JK. It was a 4-door JK on a 3/4 ton Dodge Cummins chassis, right? And it was so cool. And it was a hot ticket item for a year and a half, 2 years. There's pictures everywhere. There was shows, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, it just disappeared.
Yep.
And it's like, what happened to that? And I had the opportunity to talk with a higher level Jeep engineer, and it was almost this reverence of, well, last time I knew, it was pulling cattle trailers in Montana.
That's
it had
awesome.
made it out, right? It had made it away from the crusher. It did not get disassembled. But that's interesting to think of that regardless, you know? So the J Truck extended cab is a great storyline about him buying it for $1 or him stealing it is a little bit of
Yeah.
the concept I've
Depends
heard.
on which side of the
It
that you
depends
wanna
on
look
what
at.
side of the story you want to talk about. I think there's been some because typically prototype vehicles don't have titles.
I
Yeah.
mean, as far as I'm concerned, even if he legally bought it for $1, that's still a steal.
There you go.
For sure.
There you go. So a little bit about Toledo. It's a great experience. There's a number of display vehicles inside. Obviously, people are talking about it in the comments. Go check out their social page to see their coverage because I know it was banging, and we appreciate that. And hopefully, we'll be back in the future. Steel City Jeep Jam was a local road rally inspired Jeep event. For those who love their Jeep and getting together with Jeep people, but not necessarily going out and bumping around in an off-road capacity.
But they're still not just sitting still. They're doing some
Right,
activity.
and you have a philanthropic pursuit. They were actually raising money for Cans for Wishes. They raised over $1,000 in this
awesome.
one-day road rally that they were able to donate for Cans for Wishes. It's kind of a similar Make-A-Wish, more of a localized approach. So good Jeep people getting together to do good deeds. They supported 5 or 6 local eateries and destinations. And kudos to Diana for organizing it and coordinating all these different stops and places and charity that the Jeep people were able to engage in. And then I understand that it actually ended in downtown Meadville, Pennsylvania, that has a big event called Thunder in the City, I believe. And so it's this big, massive car show. So you've got, 20, 30 Jeeps invading this car show. What a cool experience if you were in Western Pennsylvania, not making a trip over to Big Toledo Jeep Festival.
Yep.
You could stay localized to the area and get your Jeep community fix.
And
you know?
Diana, if you're still on, I'd love to hear some of your experiences,
Highlights,
your
yeah.
highlights from that event.
No doubt. So there was a cool event happening over the weekend as well. I suppose finally on the smorgasbord, we'll talk ever so briefly about our road trip. Years ago, I have our best friends from college have always graciously invited us to participate in their Outer Banks experience. Now, if you are unfamiliar, so prior to this, I was almost, I don't know, I wasn't, it wasn't high up on my priority list, to be honest,
Yeah.
prior to this.
It was
And
something you drove past on your way to Florida.
yeah, or it was almost like a little, I don't know, I don't want to use taboo, but it was just like, it was not just somewhere I didn't care to go. Like it just
Yeah.
didn't hit on my register, I heard other people go and I was just like, why would I go there, And then Chris says to me, he goes, there's you can drive your Jeep on the beach. And I was
He
like,
was all in.
I was like, wait
Sold.
a second. Wait a second, And so if you are unaware, and I love talking about the Outer Banks and specifically the 4x4 beaches, right? Because that's what's pertinent to this group that's gathered here that Joe has called us to meeting. And and so this idea that at this point in time, we've been going for several years. There are people who go every single year. And kind of engage in the beach ocean life experience. We have not been ones that necessarily need to go every single year, but it's definitely somewhere that I enjoy going. And I'm thankful that we have this reserve. So this is actually a national seashore. So the federal government has subsidized the protections of this specific area that we specifically attend. Outer Banks as a whole is this fascinating strip of coastal region, some of it being more developed, like a Myrtle Beach type experience with the putt-putt and go-kart tracks.
And I think most
that kind of
people, when
goofy
you
stuff.
hear Outer Banks, that's what they're thinking of, and that's what they're talking about.
And that's why I was kind of turned off years ago, right?
Yeah.
It was like before we ever started going out to Las Vegas for SEMA, I was not interested in going because of the overly commercialized
Kind of tourist trap.
touristy
idea.
trap stuff, right?
Yep.
That's just not me. Chris was like, no, that's not what we do, right? And Scott Lindquist, for many years, those of you who have paid attention to SFJ know he was very involved. He, too, goes to OBX. We go to the more remote areas, which I didn't even know was a thing, right?
Yeah.
And Joe's saying National Park Services, feed the rangers, not the wildlife.
And pet the sweaty things, right, Joe? Something about petting the rangers? I don't know.
Oh, back away.
Yep.
So, I specifically have been going down to the Hatteras National Seashore, which is fantastic. And those who are close to me know how much I love the Allegheny National Forest. So these preserves or allocated lands that people before us have protected, which is so valuable, right, to our outdoor off-road experience. Kind of creating that balancing act, right, between these protected lands and our ability to go enjoy them. Through this, we have gone down there for quite a few years now at this point, and I found myself telling people in kind of a proud moment that I've taken 5 different Jeeps to the Outer Banks. And it's almost become a thing for me
To have a different
myself
Jeep each year down there.
to do these different Jeeps. So I've actually taken my father's LJ down one year.
Yep.
We took the hauler down, which we took 3 Jeeps. I took my father's, my sister's, and mine down previously. And this year we drove my wife's mall crawler down, right? And finally didn't crawl the mall with it at this regard.
Real fast, Joe said only if you've been granted permission. Always ask before petting the ranger. Some bite.
Classic. Would expect nothing less. So as far as our experience down there, we there's so many things. Let me just do my best to give highlights so that we don't.
You started
stay
to
too
say
long.
what Jeeps you've taken. You said your dad's Jeep.
Yeah, I took Dad's. I've taken it twice. Once on the hauler, and once on a driven it down. My sister's, Chuck Norris, and then my wife's at this point. So maybe that's only 4.
Yeah, and we gotta tell Jen it needs a name.
Oh, it's Piper.
Oh, Piper. So you
Piper.
took Piper this
We
time.
took Piper.
Okay,
Yes.
that was
You're
important.
gonna have
took
Davey make
Piper.
a graphic for you with a name on it.
Oh, we should.
Should do that.
Yeah.
Should. Piper.
Because
Yes.
I hear Scott's actually gonna have
I'm gonna-
Oscar on his now.
I'm gonna have a label.
He's
on it.
finally gonna
Nice.
put a name on it.
Oh, look
Yeah.
at you.
He's
fancy
named
pants.
it years ago, but he never put the
Yes,
name
never
on
put the
I'm
name
gonna
on it.
Join the group where it's on the hood.
Woo, look at you coming up with the time. It's only 7 years you've owned the Jeep.
Just so you know, it means it's not cool anymore now that I did it.
Yeah, now that you did it.
Oh.
Oh dear. All of you have. Listen, my dad was putting stuff on the hood 20 years ago.
Well, that's
you
what I
know?
mean. It's taken me 20 years to
20,
come
20
around.
years to come around to it. So we had a fantastic experience. It was really valuable to me this year to go with less. I think maybe it's a little bit of where I'm at in life.
Yeah.
I really wanted to travel with less to our, to the best of our ability. As usual, it's also critically important to me to go to Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
And for the sake of just my little soapbox, all people, no matter of any belief system that you have, need to physically visit Washington, D.C. and be in that space at some point in time, understanding the value of what this nation was founded upon. That's my piece, right?
Yep.
And so it's critically important to me that my family and my kids go there physically on a regular basis. So even just for a few hours, and we walk around.
Yep.
So we did that on our drive down. You can see some of those pictures on my social media. From there, I once again, COVID broke the hospitality industry.
Hard.
100%.
Do you remember when Jennifer and I drove into Charleston to
When she
visit?
was hanging out of the truck yelling at people?
Yeah, that time.
Yeah. I vaguely remember
Yeah.
something about that.
Yeah. So,
Spreading love and understanding.
Yeah, she's a real chill woman, not to be honest. So,
Just don't cross
do you
her.
remember when I didn't have a hotel and we
Yeah.
had to do a death drive out of Charleston to
Yes.
find
Yeah.
the skeeziest cash-only motel that I've ever stayed in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We left Washington, D.C. because there's nothing short of 157,000 hotels on
Yes.
the stretch from south of
So
D.C.
obviously it's not okay for Simpsons to stay there.
No. We decided because of course we're unpacking decades of our traveling experience where
Yes.
we're just going to drive until we get tired and then we're going to get a room.
Yeah.
Um,
We want to find, mom and pop Joe Bob's with the serial killer next door.
so we
Bates
once
Motel.
again found 0 hotels that had vacancy.
Yeah.
Right? It is now getting late.
Yep.
It is getting painful.
That
We've
happens.
been rejected.
Yes.
Jennifer is so tired she actually called the one hotel
And pleaded with them.
at least twice, maybe 3 times.
Like kick
But she
somebody out.
she called like the same one accidentally.
Oh dear.
She was like, I don't know if I called this one. We're going to try this one, and called like the same one. We called a bajillion hotels. We're hammered down in her Jeep. It's running beautifully. Everything's copacetic. It's very, very enjoyable in that regard. We get to a hotel that says, yes, they have a room for us. Cool. We go to check in. Front end looks okay. This is not a cheap hotel, right? This is
Yeah.
average, right? For average hotel. And
Like a Best Western, Days Inn
it
kinda-
was a Quality Inn.
Okay.
This is like when we stayed at the Ramada,
Yes.
right? I'm thinking this is okay.
Just need a place to lay my head.
Just got to lay our head. I'm checking in and he says, hey, we're in the process of remodeling this back building, right? So they had it's like in a horseshoe. This back part of the horseshoe, we're in the process of remodeling. So the carpet is off the hallway. It doesn't look good, but as long as you're understanding, then you'll be fine. Okay, cool. We pull around back, gives us key cards. We go down to the door. I promise you, folks, Patreons, I'll show you I'll upload the picture there. I promise you that we walked past the door. So we're counting the numbers, 214, right? So we're supposed to be room 216. We walk past, first of all, we open the door and it smells terrible. It smells like death, right? The hallway smells like death and chlorine. And there's no pool, so I can't even. We start to walk down the hallway. 212. The light is flickering like a horror movie. 214. We are supposed to be 216. I encounter 214. I promise you, there is a condemnation, a condemned notice taped to the door
Of 216.
of 214. We're 216.
Oh.
Of 214, there is a condemned sign taped to the
Stuff
door.
happened in 214.
Stuff happened in 214. We walk past the condemned sign to 216. That is our room. We are next to the condemned room.
Oh, boy.
I go to use the key card, and we're going. The kids are tired. Leo is freaked out.
Oh,
Rose,
of course.
Rose, because she is like my personality twin. She's like, this is okay. We just need to sleep. This 8-year-old is like our number one cheerleader. She's like, it's gonna be okay. We just gotta close our eyes, and we'll wake up, and it'll be fine. We go to open the door. Doesn't open. Key cards don't work. We call the front desk. Wait a few minutes. Kids are freaking out now because lights are flickering, smells like death. Condemned door, room next to us, right?
Jason Bates is peeking out through the door.
One of the front end hosts comes around the corner. He's got like a door jimmy in one hand, a master key in another hand, and I'm like, what is he doing? He's fighting with the door. All of a sudden, it unlocks, right? And I'm thinking, okay. He opens the door, I promise you, 20 inches. Rose is like got her head like real close, and he closes it right away. He goes, I find you another room. And I was like, what? Rose is like, it wasn't that bad. We could have slept in there. You know?
Oh my God.
I was like, Jen's trying to like calm down Leo a little bit. They're like, we just got to get out of this space. Guy is like, I'll find you another room. We're like, okay. He goes away. 15 minutes later, he comes back. Meanwhile, we're still standing in the death chlorine flickering light hallway that's out of the
Why
Bates
did you
Motel
go back
hotel.
to your vehicle?
So, because he said he'd be right back. He finally comes back. He's at the other end of the building. He's like, I'll open this room. He disappears into a room. So at this point in time, we're like, okay, now dogs are barking. Smells that are not legal are filling the hallway. People are talking. I'm thinking
He disappeared in the room. You're expecting him to not
disappears.
come back at this point.
we don't know what room he went into. We eventually, we go down there. We're standing outside of multiple rooms because we do not know where he went. He opens the room up. Well, you can hear somebody like dressing the beds and doing all this stuff, right? He opens the door up. I promise you, as you kind of look inside, the ceiling from the bathroom was on the bathroom floor and in the tub, and the walls were scraped down, and there was literally either scraping or mildew on the walls.
Oh my God.
And I'm thinking to myself, you're not going to charge me what you charged me and then expect me to stay in this space, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it's important to note the sidebar right here and now that my wife is a saint for fully engaging and or an equal party in these shenanigans,
Yes.
right? And my kids are troopers for the fact that this is even palatable,
Yes.
And finally we get to the point, because we're not ones to make an exact ruckus in this moment, and I don't want to sleep in the Jeep. I said, hey, I'm sorry, I need a refund. I don't want to stay in this room, They say, okay. We go around out front. As we pull up front, there's multiple more vehicles that are now at the lobby. This is 2:30 in the morning, right? There's multiple vehicles. I walk in, and there's a woman. She's very animated in line in front of me talking to the guy who just checked me in. And ultimately, what I inappropriately eavesdrop in their conversation was the fact that she just left a hotel because it was so filthy, nasty, dirty that because they were traveling equally, that was the only room that was available to them, and it was so filthy, nasty, dirty that they came to this place.
Oh boy! Oh boy!
And she
They're in for a
was
ride.
elated after seeing the accommodations that were available to her in comparison to the place that she just came from, because they too were desperate to find a room.
Oh boy!
Folks, I don't know what is going on in this world, but COVID broke the hospitality industry.
I'm going to say this. Chuck is saying you were contaminating a crime scene, were you?
I was, and Patreon.
So you've incriminated yourself.
You'll see. I'll post up some pictures on Patreon for you now that I've explained a little bit of what you'll be looking at. The last piece of this story, of this specific storyline, was the fact that this gentleman at the front was very understanding. They actually found us a different room, which my wife thinks maybe they just kicked out one of them had a room and they just removed them. I don't know.
They were dragging them out as you were wandering around.
Yes.
They were depicting
They were
those.
desperate
I
for
did
your money
as
and
a-
didn't want to refund you.
What I did as an appropriate husband was I said, honey, they have another room here in this building. They said they can put us in. Instead of having a double bed for the kids and my wife, they have a single king and a pull-out bed. Would you be amenable to that after we just left the crime scene horror movie building? And I said, she's like, I'm so tired. And my wife's a friggin' trooper. Like, she's super cool. And she's like, I don't know how I'd feel. I say, well, here's the thing. You go look at it. I'm out. I'm done. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not making this decision. I empower you to make this decision for us. She made the decision. It actually was a decent enough room. Not great by any stretch. Not
Yeah.
good for the money that I spent. Honestly, years ago, that money should have got me, a great quality hotel
Closer
room.
to a suite.
Yes. I mean, this was a suite. I paid a sweet price.
Oh. Oh.
For not a sweet room, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you kind of sweet as in
Yeah.
SWEET. Here's the thing. I'm going to just move forward to the beach. The aux battery, those of you who have JLs, JTs, you know the problem with the aux battery. The aux battery decided that the electrical sensitivities of of being in that extreme heat and driving on those oceanfront beaches was the time when that battery was going to fail me.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes, right? Despite the fact that I had actually electrically tested it here before we left.
Yep.
And Jen's JL is an 18, so that's a 5-year-old battery setup. And when it went, it goes. So I found myself, I promise you folks, there is a remote island called Ocracoke, which is only accessible via vehicle ferry. So we had been driving on beaches. Driving on beaches is all about air pressure. You don't have to have big tires or fancy four-wheel drive systems. It's literally about running 12 to 15 PSI. That is the key, the secret sauce. And we go out and you can park right on the beachfront.
I think you hurt Joe's feelings.
Why is that?
He does not want to hear about dead batteries.
Yeah, Joe, because right now I'm channeling. I was channeling you over the last week, honestly. I promise you that Jennifer's dead battery decided to go. So first of all, it was it's an hour drive from the house we were staying in down the shoreline of Hatteras Island. It was a 3-hour wait at the ferry out on the hot tarmac waiting for the ferry. It was an hour boat ride from Hatteras Island to Ocracoke. Okay. Jen's Jeep battery decided to die without resurrection on the remote island of Ocracoke.
Of course.
I promise you that after, going to the beaches down there and then into town, air quotes, those of you who are listening and can't see me, into town, it decided to die to the point of no return.
Mm-hmm. The soul has left it.
The soul had left the Jeep, right?
Yep.
So your aux battery killed your main battery.
So the aux battery, and what I can tell you now, hindsight, the aux battery, in my opinion, right? The actual starting battery, the big battery, and it's important for those of you who are listening because there's a lot of misnomers online. You have the JLJTs, the little battery, the little lawnmower battery is not your start-stop battery. It is a reserve capacity battery to ensure that you have appropriate voltage and amperage upon restart and when the vehicle is off, thus ensuring that you have all the starting capacity of your large automotive grade battery.
Yep.
A lot of people, a lot of DIYers, a lot of people who think they have answers on the internet think that lawnmower battery starts and stops your vehicle.
It's very often referenced as your start-stop battery, but it's not.
Because it is your aux battery. It is your auxiliary for when start-stop is functioning.
Mm-hmm.
And when it is unhappy, it will say start-stop is not available. That's a computer control that says that it knows that there's something wrong with that battery system, and it's not going to do or enact the start-stop.
It's trying to mitigate the problem.
Correct. And I had saw that, and it said start-stop unavailable, batteries charging. I had saw that for a little while. I was perfectly participant in my downcoming. I could have, I could have changed
the Jeep
those
was
batteries.
waving his white flag.
It was. And in
we're
true,
going down, people.
Well, in true Neil Simpson fashion, I was like, "You will go until the soul leaves the Jeep."
And I heard that you have an inner liner that prevented you from easily accessing the battery.
I did. Right? So
this is why we test things, people.
This is why I should have just done it here. I did test it, and it tested appropriate. The
problem is that when one of those batteries goes, it will still test appropriate.
Correct.
Yeah.
You have to test them individually.
Even if your front tire is up on a log that's taller than you, and your battery decides that this is the day.
This is the moment that the battery is going.
You know that too well.
Kill the vehicle.
Feel it in my soul.
So, and it's so valuable to know that these vehicles are so electrically sensitive at this point that it does not matter. This is not the vehicle of the 70s, 80s, 90s, the 40s to the 90s. If it does not have full voltage, yes, your lights will come on. Yes, your radio will play. Yes, your interior dome lights. All of those signs and symptoms that you thought you knew about your vehicle operating and a dead battery or a good battery are out the window. I say that factually and professionally. That's the reality of this situation. So here I am on Ocracoke Island. In fact, the party that I had just taken over, we had taken 3 vehicles over. The party that I had taken over had left with their 2 vehicles. So now I am by myself with my son on a remote island in that little town.
Leo's gonna need therapy someday.
Yes. Yes. So, but you know what? He's the best little ride or die. Like, he asks a couple questions. My kids are the best adaptable little kids, right? And all of a sudden, there's a guy. He's got a pickup truck. He's like, "Hey, you need a jump start?" And I was like, "Yes, I do," because that's all it needs, right? It doesn't have the starting capacity to initiate the starter. So I started it. I promise you, I let that Jeep idle for 5 hours.
Yep.
Joe said, "I've seen this movie. It didn't end well."
You know what? It was fine. At the end of the day, I went ahead, jumped it.
I mean, says, but did you die?
But did you die?
I'm gonna say Joe's not wrong about this. You started off in a sketchy hotel with flickering lights and bad smells. End up on a remote island.
Rooms. End up on a remote island.
Nothing about this says it's a good movie.
This was
is
vacation.
This is a horror.
This was
thriller
my
movie.
vacation, right? I mean, and I got to be honest. Like, this is just the tip of the iceberg for some of the personal and automotive things that I eventually engage in on this. So there are people who like literally go to like
Joe's
cabins
saying,
in the woods.
Dad, do you hear banjo music?
Yeah, except for on the ocean, right? So it's like seashell music.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, sirens.
Yeah, oh, I don't even want to talk about it.
There was sirens. Oh boy.
So as far as our experience there, we got the Jeep started. My wife and a friend of ours named Erica and our daughter join us on the island. They come bring the ferry back across. They join us. I leave the Jeep running the whole time. We go visit a couple more ocean fronts. We eventually go get in line for the ferry. I kid you not, there was a overload of people leaving the island. We waited again for 3 hours to get off the island. The Jeep just sat and idled. Got on the boat. You're supposed to shut it off when it's on the boat.
And Neil did Simpson thing.
I did Simpson things. My little boy comes up to me. This is where therapy goes. Neil, Daddy, they said we need to shut our vehicle off. They said to shut the vehicles off. I said, yeah,
They're gonna have to personally ask me.
They're gonna have.
We're gonna have a conversation before.
We're gonna have a conversation before that happens. And we're gonna leave ours run. And there was no problem. It just sat on the ferry. It idled the whole time. We actually were at the very front of the boat. Could you imagine if I would have shut it off? We were literally at the very
and tied everybody up.
And they wedge you in at a triangle, right? So we actually, because of our big tires, we were not just blocking our lane, but they had a car pulled into our passenger side tire. So we were blocking dose lanes.
You made so many friends if it wouldn't have started.
If it wouldn't have started,
you were
can't
public
even
enemy number one.
And it's because it's
would have had so many people trying to jumpstart you.
It's
though.
1:30 in the morning. Everybody just wants to get off the ferry.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And you still got an hour drive back to the
And we
house.
still had an hour drive back to the house.
Ryan's saying must have been an interstate. Try a yellow top.
Dude, I have an interstate in another vehicle. Oh, it's actually in the limo. Everybody knows my limo. There's
boy.
an interstate. I bought it with an interstate. First of all, interstate, I see you. I hate your batteries. You produce the worst battery. If you are a listener and you have an interstate in your vehicle right now, just go out there, take it out right now, and trade it in because they are the worst battery manufacturer in the nation. That's just the reality of the
Dad
situation.
said that like 15 years ago.
Yes. And I feel bad for all of these people in urban areas because what Interstate did was they built battery centers. You could actually go to a store and buy their batteries.
Yep.
And they put together these and they just marketed the heck out of their battery, and it's garbage. Yes, Interstate was in the limo, and it won't start either.
Yeah, and then he said hot button. I had one in the donkey.
Yep. Hot button.
Darla says at least you made some memories.
Oh, yep.
Tony says some of my best vacation memories are the result of mechanical disasters. And then I think the comment that wins the day, Neil is this generation's Clark W. Griswold Jr.
There's
without question.
There's unfortunately, and I should not aspire for that, but here we are. Clark just wanted the best for his family, his own experience, the people around him.
Had a unique vehicle.
No doubt. So long
I
story
mean,
short,
that was Neil to a T.
ended up the battery. I had to drive an hour north off the island to get the battery that I wanted for the Jeep. And at the end of the day, I
to
ended
get
up
that interstate battery.
We passed like 15 of those.
Honestly,
stores.
the AutoZone Duralast Gold Pro Power Source is a great general use battery. It's got a great discharge and recharge process. And as AutoZones go, they're everywhere. And I don't mind that one bit. And so that was a great side option versus, say, like an Optima Yellow Top, which I would have preferred. But I'm definitely not going to buy in a pinch. Also, as a shout out to AutoZone in general, because our accounts have reciprocity, they took wonderful care of us, and and made sure that it was on the account and blah 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 blah, and then discounted a little further because hey, that sucks. Everybody hates to run into problems on vacation, and they were very accommodating. So a big shout out to them. The end of the day, because of my aluminum inner fender liners. Right? Those of you who have JLs, JTs, and you have your plastic and you watch the video, it's so easy to just pop that plastic out to get to your aux battery.
Yep.
My metal inner liners do not allow that. And that was it was a challenge enough to look at it and go, I really wanted the system to work appropriately.
Yeah.
But because quite frankly, it is a dual battery setup. Right?
Yeah.
That it's a small dual battery, but it is a dual battery setup.
And for those that don't know, you're only as strong as your weakest battery in that situation.
Yep. Right. So I wanted to put 2 new batteries in, and then the system is just working correctly.
Yep.
Ultimately, what I opted to do was a trail fix of an aux battery.
You will forget
bypass.
about your aux battery.
Yes, and I went ahead and I did the fuse and the separation of the ground system and pulled those apart. And our drive home was seamless. It was appropriate. It worked all well. A big shout out to my wife because we did a power drive. We drove 13 hours straight and just made sure to.
Better get her flowers today.
You don't even know.
He doesn't have to get her flowers. She has to work on the flower garden for her.
Well,
that's right.
With some new flowers.
With some new flowers. Oh, you know what? And
Maybe
we've
some
taken
mulch.
entirely too much time, and we haven't even talked about Mecum. So here's the last piece. I want to do this publicly. She wanted to thank you because you, Scott, picked out an appropriate. Obviously, I asked you, but
Yep.
you went and you made happen a butterfly bush purchase.
Yep.
And she said that she has never had a more beautiful butterfly bush than the one you yourself picked out. And she wanted to make sure that we affirmed you in that process. Thank you for doing that favor for us.
Yep.
And you done well.
I liked it so much we went and bought one ourselves.
No, you did not.
Yes, we planted it yesterday.
Oh,
Nice.
congratulations. That's awesome. We didn't talk at all about Mecum. And
Speaking of Mecum, Ryan's saying if you need a good Jeep mechanic, let me know. I know a guy or 3.
Nice. Yes. I could have used all of them at the beach this past week. So
I think we do like a 3-second Mecum.
well, what if we talked about Mecum with some coverage next week? We should do a 3-second.
3 seconds.
All
So cliff notes, and then we'll appropriately go into what we have learned about Mecum. But
Next week.
Next
I think
week,
that's a great topic for
we
next
had-
week
we
since
had
I
Dose
wasn't
Jeeps.
there.
We had
What?
Dose Jeeps represented there.
Neither one sold on the block.
Yes.
For those that don't know, the bids will go on. We didn't really know what that meant. We can enlighten you next week.
Additionally, you can change reserve at the moment of the auction.
Yes.
Which we also what's important to know
The
is
more you know.
The more you know. These vehicles were sent to auction not specifically by us as
Yes.
SSJ 4x4.
We were there to support the owners.
We
of
were
the
there
Jeeps.
in a support role of these owners
and to
It's-
be excited.
and to be
enthusiasts.
excited because we built these vehicles that are worthy of this caliber auction.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, there were side Ferraris and Back to the Future DeLoreans, which I loved personally.
Yes.
Anyway,
I'm pretty sure that was yours.
Yeah.
I don't care what other people say.
so the first Jeep bid went on. It did not end up selling. It could not get together. The second Jeep on the next day, which was the Wagoneer that I had helped cultivate, did sell as the bid went on, and honestly, way outside of what I expected. I thought it was going to be a high 40s. It went for 62 or 61.
62.5,
62.5, 62.7.
I think.
Try because Savage was teasing me with it over the weekend.
Yeah, I thought he sent us
I'd say I have a picture. I
62.5.
just can't remember.
It was like where did it go? Come on. Try to guess. He said 62.7. No, I
62.7.
apologize. I
Yep.
looked at the wrong number.
So that is like just crazy to me. That's something that we had put together, and we did not do a full restoration on this. This is just
It was a
something-
resto
A
mod.
resto mod. We did a mechanical restoration. It has original paint. There is spots on the hood where the tar from the roof, when it was in long-term abandonment storage, ate the paint, and it brought $62K.
Yes.
It's just awesome. So look for more of that. We will appropriately go through.
Yeah, we'll appropriately adjust Mecum next time.
Yeah, we got bunches of pictures and a bunch of stuff to go over.
And I think the Mecum video is out.
It
so
is, yep.
You, if you are one of our YouTube
wanna-
followers,
Get on, watch that, and then come back next week.
yeah, we'll give you the personal
Likewise, too, for those that did not go to Toledo and don't know what Toledo's about, we weren't there this year, but we did release a video from last year. Really shows the experience. And Davey, it was his first time going, so you kind of got to see perspective from the camera views
Yes.
from a first-time experience.
Yep. No doubt. So that's the beauty of our social reach, is our attempt to take what we do and communicate it back on a broad scale to our audience. Hopefully we're doing a good job.
Yep.
Hopefully
We're trying.
you enjoy this experience, these journeys, these Jeep builds and developments in our own life, and our accountability, our goal setting and accountability systems.
And
that,
as Chip said, our Walmart shenanigans. How many times can we be kicked out of Walmart?
I just Walmart. I love you. Why don't you love me back more? I just don't know. All right, this has been a banger. I think we call it here for the day. We're going
I
to come
agree.
back next week with a more traditional kind of event. Though this was fun. The comments were on fire. We'll come back next week. We'll have our review of Mecum, and we'll do our traditional product spotlight. And we'll kind of get back into the swing of things. We'll have some good guests coming up here in the near future. I know how much people really enjoy those additional voices or perspectives. A lot of fun with that. Unless you guys have anything else to share or say,
Jeep on.
Jeep on.
Jeep on.